Your Worship, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to our March 14th council meeting. We have a bit of a shorter agenda today, which is nice to see. Item number one is the call to order, of course, and I'll now turn to Councillor DeLeo for our land acknowledgement. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that the town of Wasaga Beach is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Tionontadi, Wendat, and is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all we do. Thank you.
Make wish, Councillor. Item number two is proclamations. The Office of the Mayor proclamation for It Starts month of March 2024. We do have a recommendation that Council proclaim March 2024 as It Starts month, as provided for in the attached proclamation to the Council agenda of March 14th, 2024. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Deputy Mayor Snell and Councillor Timms, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Item number three is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there anyone who has a pecuniary interest at this time? I have none before me. If at some point throughout the meeting you feel you do have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. And before we carry on, I think we've got a couple of items to touch on. I think we had a birthday for one of our councillors this last week. Councillor Timms, happy birthday. And we've got a great note here as well. Congratulations to one of our rising up and coming stars, Miss Catherine Middleton, who is with us in the audience here. Catherine. So Catherine, we received notice that Catherine has graduated from her AMCTO, the Municipal Experts programs. And she has completed a municipal administration program, a municipal accounting and finance program, the municipal law program, and employment law and human resources program. And very happy and proud to say, and proud of you, Catherine, that she has accomplished this with honors. So congratulations, and we're very proud. All right, and then moving on to item number 4, the adoption of the agenda. We do have a recommendation that the contents of the agenda of March 14th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Eagle and Councillor Belanger, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 4.2, the adoption of bylaw 2023-20, and that the bylaw 2023-20 be received and be deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time, passed and finally passed this 14th day of March 2024. Questions or comments on this? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor DeLeo, Councillor Eagle, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes. That the minutes of the special council meeting held on February 29th, 2024, and the regular council meeting held February 29th, 2024, are hereby adopted as circulated. Mover and a seconder on this, please. Councillor Belanger, Councillor White, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion also carries unanimously. And now moving on to item number 6, delegations. We have a delegation today, and that is Ms. Tina Rudd, the Village of Hope Wasaga Organization Awareness and Request for Support, with us today, and would ask you to come forth, have a seat, relax, turn your mic on, and the floor will be yours. Middle button, Mike. There we are. And I'm just going to ask you to lower that a bit so it picks you up better. Pull it forward, sure. All right. Again, welcome, and the floor is yours, Tina.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship and Council. My name is Tina Rudd, and I'm from the Village of Hope. Our mandate is to help feed the shelterless and those in temporary housing situations and those who are food insufficient. Our first week, we handed out 30 bag lunches and basic toiletries. We are now handing out 200-plus lunches a week, and the number is growing. The meals we provide are often the only meals they will have that day, and they are so grateful. At any given time in Wasaga Beach, there are 300 to 400 people living in tents, cars, couch surfing, or living in deplorable temporary housing situations, such as motels. That being said, there is upwards of 100 people that must vacate the motels on May 1st. They include seniors, young people, children, and those in wheelchairs. Although the response from the community has been generous, we are currently raising funds to become a registered nonprofit. The cost is immense at $3,000. However, being a registered nonprofit will open avenues for food and money donations, and will be able to advocate for changes when dealing with different levels of government. I ask the council to please either provide us the area, either in the Archives parking lot or Walmart area pavilion, for an hour twice a week to hand our lunches, and a spot midtown for a pantry. In closing, I ask the council 2 questions. When is there going to be a shelter open up here to get people out of the cold? And when there going to be more subsidized housing being built? We live in a time where homelessness is rampant. It's not only our town's problem, but a provincial and countrywide. It can no longer be out of sight, out of mind. We once again extend all invitation to the entire council to attend our next meeting at 175 Sioux Park Road on March 27, 2024 at 7 p.m. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Tina. Questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, I believe we're receiving this for information. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ego, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Sorry, I just missed. Sorry, Tina, thank you for this. Did you say there are 300 or 400 people living in tents?
In tents, temporary housing, cars, RVs.
And squatting in empty cottages.
Sorry?
And there are squatting in empty cottages.
I guess I'm just getting this for information right now because I'm surprised. And I don't know, I know we had sorry, the name has escaped me, that the county, Mr. Mayor, that, yes, the Busby Center, yeah, the Busby Center made a presentation here, and I know there was one family at that time that stated they were homeless, and I know that was taken care of, and I understand, to my knowledge, that there's a motel, and often there's rooms there, so.
There's 6 rooms at that motel.
And are they always full?
Yes. Now, they have the option to acquire 1 or 2 more rooms, but even at 1 or 2 more rooms, it's not sufficient.
I mean, and I guess I'm just going to throw it up. I mean, I walk the trails here a fair bit through town. I just haven't seen it. I'm not saying it isn't there. I just haven't seen it.
The trouble is, when they're discovered or somebody knows where they are, they will move on. They are fearful from people finding out where they are.
But 300 or 400, that's a lot.
That's including the motels, and most of the cottages are temporary too. There's no permanent housing, other than the building I live in. There is no permanent housing for these people. And they're living in deplorable conditions. I mean, they're living in mold and rat infested, and it's deplorable. I really don't know how people can survive in these situations. It's horrible. And I speak from experience through things that happened in my life. I ended up homeless. And when you're homeless, you don't want to reach out to family. So it's horrible. And right now we're trying to find housing for a couple who have to be out May 1st from one of the motels, and she's in a wheelchair. and he just had a stroke.
Have they reached out to the Busby Center?
Yes, they have.
So they're on a list, or?
They're on a list. But I mean, in my building on loan, I know everybody has to go on a list, and I know there's priorities, but in my building alone, there's 3 empty apartments. I mean, why Simcoe Housing can't fast track this couple is beyond me, because they're going to be ended up living in the Rand.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Thank you, Tina, for your presentation. Appreciate it. As many are aware, the mayor and myself have the privilege and honor of sitting on county council as well. And in that capacity, I also sit on the Affordable Housing Committee, and the mayor can speak for himself. He sits on the Housing Corporation. So this is something that's very familiar with us. In regards to what are we doing as a municipality and what are we doing to advocate for this particular need in regards to affordable housing and some sort of temporary shelter, I can share with you that we continue to have those conversations with the general manager of that portfolio and do have an upcoming meeting to speak about those 2 specific items. If you do recall, when the building that you live in on Zoo Park Road was built, that also was allocated to have an additional pre-approved 99 units there. So that conversation along with the CAO is continuing to happen. We are not blind to the situation. And I know that as a county, from a county perspective, they are also looking at putting together, this just came up at Tuesday's meeting, a 10-year affordable housing, obtainable housing and homelessness strategy, because the current 10-year one is expiring this year. The question I would have is perhaps if our chief, who's responsible for fire and safety not fire and safety, but health and safety, and this particular area under your portfolio, could you please provide us an update as you work closely with the Busby Center in regards to our particular needs, as well as perhaps an update in regards to the food bank or to food shelters or spaces that are available for the general public, please?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through the chair. I'm happy to provide a bit of background information on the Busby Center and what its usage has been throughout the winter months. And I can probably touch on as well the warming center provisions that are in place. And I might ask our CEO of the library to help us out with an available resource at the library as far as food goes, just so the community is aware of what's been put in place. So the Busby Center is currently contracted as the operator for the local shelter, which is located on Beechwood Road. They're funded by the County of Simcoe, who has a 10-point homeless prevention plan that's available on the county's website. Also available on the county's website is the shelter utilization, not just for our local shelter, but across Simcoe County. So the members of public can actually access this by attending it's open.simcoe.ca. Across the county, there's about 244 beds that are available on a daily basis through the shelter system. But the county also has the ability to add surge capacity, especially important in the wintertime, you know, when it's terribly cold out, to add an additional 170 bed, and they 107 beds. And they do that from time to time. Using that public access website, you're actually able to go on and look at night by night what the usage of the Busby Center has been. And since the winter started, it's been anywhere from 3 individuals using the shelter up to 13 individuals using the shelter. So their normal capacity day to day, I'm told, is 10 beds. I realize that you mentioned 6, but the information I had was 10. And then they have a motel voucher program that if they need to expand, they'll offer additional spaces. And that's how they accommodate on the nights that it had gotten to 12 or 13 individuals. I do acknowledge as well that not all individuals in a vulnerable circumstance will want to use the shelter system, but that is what is available, you know, through the current means. And I do acknowledge that there likely are a number of people living in cars or other conditions as well. As far as the warming center goes, earlier this winter, the municipality actually created a warming center. Well, it's actually a warming and a cooling center policy, which is the first time the municipality has done that. And what we do is we rely on the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit to announce an extreme temperature warning, so whether that be cold in the winter or warm in the summer. And when they've made those announcements, we proactively open up a center at the Recplex overnight, if it's required, in order to take people in, and we would advertise that throughout the community. We, of course, have our local food bank, which we work closely with. We also provide grant money to, and it is a strategic priority of members of council to review that system later this year, which we'll be doing so. And with your permission, maybe I can just get our CAO from our library to touch on an available service there as well.
Please, thank you. Pam?
Thank you, through you. What we offer at the library currently is a food pantry. It is supported through the Ministerial Food Bank. So in our food pantry at the library, we provide snacks, simple food items, instant ready meals, things like jars of peanut butter as well. We have an arrangement with Georgian Triangle Humane Society. We also have pet food available. So the plan for this pantry is to be available outside the hours of the Ministerial Food Bank, so that if people are finding that they have insufficient food, that they can drop in and pick up any items free of charge. No limitations or anything on them. They can just walk in and help themselves to whatever they may want. We are going to partner with the Good Food Box to provide fresh produce as well as we move forward. So this is just one more option for our community.
Thank you very much, Pam. Deputy Mayor Snell, carry on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for that update, because I think it's important for the community to understand that the municipality is working hard alongside its residents. I appreciate any resident that takes initiative to try to fill a gap, but it's important to work in unison so that we're not duplicating services or wasting resources or your time and energy. I also appreciated very much in your update the fact that you're going to invest in becoming a registered not-for-profit. I think that's really going to help you for financial transparency, and also too because we have community grants that we assign each year. The food bank is one of many recipients, so it'll really open up some great options for you. Once we do have the conversation with the GM from the county, I would be more than happy to connect with you guys and to sort of keep you updated in regards to outcomes, because we've got a couple of important items on that agenda that I'm really looking forward to addressing. Both the mayor and myself and General Manager Fayez Baguette is very much aware of the need here in Wasaga Beach, as unfortunately every community in our county is experiencing as well. We're not unique, but at the same time, we're not ignorant to the need either. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Thanks again for coming to Council today with this very important issue. So last year, I think Councillor Belanger and I attended, along with one of General Danny's in the planning department, Matt joined us for the AMO Homelessness Symposium. And it was a very, very eye-opening educational session where we had some folks with lived experience come and speak to us. And the courage it would take for somebody to come into that room full of a bunch of, essentially politicians and service providers and tell us what it's like, and tell us what the solutions are like. And there's a couple things that came away from that. And one of them is that although a shelter is a stopgap, it is not a solution. The solution to homelessness is a home. And that it's a regional issue that needs to be tackled at the local level. If we in Wasaga Beach were to pool a bunch of resources and come together and put together housing for the region as a leader, it would have some detrimental effects, and we need to work with our community partners in all the little communities around so that we don't end up dragging people from their current communities. Think of our neighboring communities. If you have somebody who has a local, maybe even a limited support system or whatever, wherever they are, they maybe have some family, maybe some friends, maybe a little part-time job or whatever, and now we essentially lure them to Wasaga Beach for a home, and then it removes them from all of that. And that can be quite shocking, especially to people who are sensitive to their cultural belonging. So we need to work with the county very collectively to say in each one of these little communities, and no matter how small they are, they need to address the homeless issues there with actual homes. Later on the agenda today, we're going to talk about some town land, and we're going to really start thinking about where town land goes in the future. And I'm going to bring this up again later on, be warned, to talk about this and say that we have the opportunity now to look at where we are with our partnership with the county and saying what land we do have available, how we can apply these resources to actually give the solution that's required, which is homes and not shelters. So you'll see more from that today. I appreciate you coming forward. To the Deputy Mayor's point, getting your nonprofit status definitely gives that transparency so that you can get funds from organizations, from local groups, from fundraisers and charities and whatnot that can support you, and I support you on your mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I really applaud what the organization is doing, and always my big concern about the help that we offer is that we understand what each other are doing and not duplicate. And sometimes duplication is definitely needed. As you've heard from my colleagues, these issues of affordable housing, poverty, and food insecurity is really top of mind with so many of us, all of us at this table. And our priorities include hosting a poverty reduction roundtable. And that's something that the fire chief has been working on that's coming up in May. I think that the village project has to be at the table along with all the agencies. So we learn from each other, we can learn how to collaborate, and we can learn to fill the gaps that are missing. But without reiterating what people have already said, I applaud what you're doing. We know that we have to help our neighbors, and we have to find the big solution rather than the stop gaps, because it will tire out and burn out all the people that have stepped up to make the sandwiches, donate the money, stand in the cold. I saw it firsthand, and like I say, thank you for what you're doing. And we all know that we have much more to do here and are willing to put that time in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, through the mayor. First of all, I think we all know through COVID and the effects of inflation that the need is great and growing, and I applaud you for taking action. There's a number of us at the table that have been very active in supporting the local food bank and have raised a lot of money over the years. I know Ellen Timms, Councillor Timms Beach Bites are very active. There's a lot of projects underway that need coordination, like the Councillor Timms indicated the poverty reduction roundtable that's being initiated. And part of that, how that sort of started is a couple of the ministers in town recognized that a lot of the support services don't actually reside in Wasaga Beach, but they cover Wasaga Beach. And the coordination and sometimes the duplication or the level of service is not adequate. So we're working with the food bank to create what's called navigators. And actually, the county and the food bank are meeting tomorrow, and part of that process is so that we can assess a client of the food bank and understand their situation and try to match up the support and services that can help them move them out of poverty, and to the roundtable to better coordinate all of the services that are available to individuals, because there's really two situations: people that are very knowledgeable of how to utilize the system, and people that are not knowledgeable at all and struggle with that. So When you talked about needing a spot, like, have you had conversations with the food bank? Because that,
Yes, I
because
have.
that location obviously is not open 7 days a week, and
Yeah.
they have expanded to an additional room that hopefully will be utilized for,
And we're not, we're actually trying to help the food bank because they can't serve everybody, and I know they're beyond their limit as it is right now.
well, they're very deliberate in that they, there's a misconception that people can go whenever they are hungry or need food, but it really is a bump to help people get through the month, and it's not an unlimited supply, but again, very good work. But, so, council will certainly receive your presentation for information. Again, I applaud you for the work you're doing. The need is great, and some of the solutions are complicated, and we are working towards
Oh,
solutions.
I realize
so
it's,
Thank you.
we're not going to solve everything.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Tina, Mike, what you guys are doing, it's just phenomenal. When I saw you guys start up on Facebook, I went, wow. The fact that you're, serving food every day, sandwiches or whatever you're doing, it's just heart-wrenching. I, for one, I don't know how the rest of council, but we'll take it under consideration. I would be open to giving you the $3,000 a grant to start up your registration. I'm all for that. Maybe that would help you out a bit. But I echo everything my co-workers here have said. We are looking into it, but if that $3,000 will help you get started as an organization, I'm all for it. And thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo, and to Tina and Mike, thank you for all your efforts. We understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, and it's not easy. And I think you're probably learning as you're doing this that it isn't easy. You're probably seeing people that you're missing as well that you just can't get to, or they're not getting to you. Homelessness is a pandemic. It truly is. And it's not just here in Wasaga Beach. You've heard me say it before that, our beautiful town is now seeing big city problems, and homelessness is one of those. And not that we haven't had homelessness for several years and had issues with people, having to live in motels and cottage courts for the winter only. But I often argue that if those motels and cottage courts weren't available at this point in time, where would those people be then? So it actually helps and assists somewhat, but doesn't solve the problem. As Deputy Mayor Snell said, we have the honor and privilege to sit on County Council, and Deputy Mayor does sit on the Affordable Housing Committee, and I do sit on the Simcoe County Housing Corporation, and we do work hard at the county level. And it is a county responsibility, although that doesn't relieve us locally in any way, shape, or form of our responsibility and what it is that we should be trying to do. The county owns hundreds and hundreds of homes. You have the honor and privilege to be in a beautiful home on Zoo Park Road. I'm happy to say that it was my last council that brought that to Wasaga Beach, and there's room for 99 more units, and we'll be making application and working with the county to get those 99 units underway as quickly as we possibly can. But in this day and age, dollars and cents is also a big issue, and the cost. If I told you the cost to build one of these units per square foot nowadays, it's astronomical. Not to say that we shouldn't do it, and I've often said, we've heard from many members of council today about duplication. We have so many organizations out there who are trying to be involved in trying to find a solution. But I believe that if federally and provincially, if instead of giving little pots of money to 3,000 or 2,000 or however many small organizations there is to try and do their little bit, who all need to have staff and pay staff and so on and so forth, if we just put all that money into building houses, we'd be so much further ahead. But instead, we get caught up in the bureaucracy. And, this organization needs X amount, and this organization needs X amount, and your organization needs some money to do what it is you're trying to do, which are all amazing things that we're trying to accomplish collectively. But we're using up a lot of resources and dollars that could simply be building homes for people to live in. And we've, you know, my point is, it's such a huge issue and problem, and it's extremely complex. But what I think is important to be clear here, and you've heard it from my colleagues, is that the town of Wasaga Beach, contrary to what some people might believe, is working hard to create all of those services, create housing with our partners at the county. You know, we've donated land in the past. We're prepared to do that in the future. And that's a big part of it in this day and age with the cost of land. We're prepared to waive things like development charges and tax deferrals and whatever it is we can possibly do within our arsenal, within the Municipal Act and the guidelines to do. But it is very, very complex, for sure. But be rest assured, we're all well aware of it. And we're all working and doing our best, as you are, and we appreciate that for what you do. And I'm sure the folks, and you know, I understand that Mike was able to shake someone's hand, and that individual shared his story. And those stories are all heart-wrenching and they're very touching, but they're not one-offs. And then we have the issue where, you know, as the chief has explained at the Busby Center, we often have situations where we do have beds and we do have shelter available and people just don't use it. Now, so what does that mean? Is it a communications issue collectively? I mean, let's face it, people who are homeless, although many may have phones, they may not have internet. And so they may not be aware of those beds and where they are. But then I can tell you, I have personally talked with people who refuse to go inside. Last year, we opened an emergency center at the arena. We knew there were several people within our community that we thought would come in for the evening, and I think we had 2 people, Chief, a total of 5, and 3 of them were just stranded motorists, but 2 people that, you know, were out in awful winter conditions. That was quite the storm, and just wouldn't come inside. And to your point, they'll often move on. They don't want to, you know, deal with their family or speak to their family. And there's so many other mental health issues that can often come into play there. And you know, great to hear that you can speak, and I can hear the passion, Tina, in your voice when you do speak about this, that you come from a situation where you have been homeless. So you do understand firsthand what that's like. And so that I think that speaks to what it is you're trying to do and pay it forward. I'm sure at some point someone helped you along and you want to do that. So congratulations for that. We truly appreciate that. So we will take this into consideration for information today is how it is. And we will no doubt be in touch. I think what's important, though, is at some point when you get a minute, reach out to the chief, if you will, and make sure you have all of the information of what's available, where it is, how we go about getting it, and reach out to General Manager Fayez Baguette at the county, Mina. He is a wealth of knowledge, a brilliant young man, and really cares about what it is he does. And he'll be able to provide you with a lot of that information. So when you are speaking to the people, that maybe you can help encourage them too. You know, these are the services available. We can, I'm sure, help create something in a handout where there are numbers and information where people can call. Because that's a big part of it, is that getting that communication to the people who really need it.
Yes.
We can all go on the internet and see it, but the folks that are out there living in a tent, they can't. And so how do we get them there? And there's no doubt that there's many who aren't aware of that. So
Yeah, it's just not, like I say, people in tents, it's people in the motels.
Hotels, motels, and
Yeah.
they may not have internet either, right?
No.
Or the ability to see that. Pam, did you want to add something?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make Tina aware that, and the public, that the library also has counselors come in weekly to provide assistance for homelessness. So we have Empower Simcoe representatives in weekly, as well as the Indigenous Homeless Organization. So they are in the library to assist people one-on-one to try and solve.
Numbers. Yeah, I try to pass it on when I can, but it's hard when you're dealing with some of these people. They're so frightened.
No, understood. I just wanted to make everybody aware that that is another service that's available. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the point is, we can do everything possible, but if the individual doesn't seek that help or doesn't want to go inside for whatever that reason may be, and if we can't convince them then to speak to the counselor or whatever is required to help them, again, it's very complex, but you know that because you're dealing with it straight up firsthand. All right, if there's nothing else from any members of council, we do have a motion that the delegation from Tina Rudd, Village of Hope, Wasaga part pertaining to organizational awareness and request for support be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder on this, please? Councillor White, Deputy Mayor Snell, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, we have staff reports. The following staff report items have been pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately, and that is 7.5 and 7.6. So we'll vote on those separately. And we have a recommendation that the following consent list items under staff reports and all recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately, and those will be done through recorded votes. All right, do we have any questions or comments? I understand there is comments for 7.1. Councillor Belanger?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Again, in 7.1 was the Provincial Ministry of Environment Drinking Water Inspection Report for Wasaga Beach. We also had in there our annual report, but I always like to take the time to publicly congratulate both our Public Works and Okra, I believe, that do such a fantastic job of maintaining our drinking water. And certainly there's been a number of issues both in Canada and the U.S. Where drinking water has become an issue, and we have kept a very high standard, and I think we should all be proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and my comments echo that of Councillor Belanger. Congratulations to Kevin Lalonde and his team and to Aqua for the great job that they do every year. Year after year, we are scoring 100% or maybe 1 point below that, and I know that Kevin takes that to heart when it's not 100%, as does his team and his water folks that are working on our water system on a daily basis. So well worth mentioning and well worth congratulating our team and the fellas and gals that are actually in the trenches, making sure that when we turn our tap on and we grab a glass of water, we drink it without any question, and it tastes good, and it's very refreshing. So thank you for that, team. All right, we'll now then, you've heard the question. I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. And then on to item number 8, correspondence. The following correspondence items have been pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. 8.1.3 has been moved. With respect to the rest, that the consent items under correspondence be received for information, except for the correspondence moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. Can I, questions or comments? Mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Snell, Councillor DeLeo, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. On to item number 9, minutes and board meetings. We do have one item that the consent list items under minutes and board meetings and committees be received for information, except for minutes moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately, and we have nothing that has been pulled. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Belanger, Councillor DeLeo, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. And then item number 10, matters for consideration. We do have 10.1, and I'm going to suggest, Madam Clerk, that we separate this out into 2 separate matters. We separate item number 2 under this recommendation to be voted on separately, and then the balance. Makes sense? All right. So the item 10.1 is the Huronia West OPP Detachment Board 2024-0314-10, and the recommendation is that the report titled Huronia West OPP Detachment Board to the council meeting February 29, 24 be received, and that 2, the council appoint 2 names. Madam Clerk?
I apologize. So we'll separate number 2 out.
Sorry, yes. We'll move on to item number 3 then, and that council approve that all the members of the detachment board be paid remuneration in the amount of $150 daily, which is equal to the remuneration paid to the provincial appointees subject to approval by the Council of Springwater Township and Clearview Township, and that council directs staff to post a joint recruitment notice for the 3 community representatives and board positions based on appointment and eligibility requirements outlined in the Community Safety and Policing Act, and that 5, the council approves the cost for the Huronia West OPP Detachment Board be allocated equally for the year 2024 among Clearview, Springwater, and Wasaga Beach, and that item number 6, the 2024 Detachment Board costs be funded from the Police Services Reserve, and number 7, that bylaw 2023-79, being a bylaw to establish a Police Services Board for the town of Wasaga Beach, be repealed. Questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Sorry, did you have a question or comment, Councillor?
I would like to have a motion for number 2. Are we skipping? We're coming back to 2.
We're going to
right?
come back to number 2, yes. So on the rest, Councillor Ego?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I have a question, and through you, just how it reads on number 3, members of the church be paid remuneration in the amount of $150 daily. I would think that means daily attendance at a meeting?
365 days a year, Councillor.
I'm signing up.
No, it is based on per meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, did you want to elaborate on that just so everyone is clear?
Thank you, Your Worship. So within the new regulation that's going to be coming into play under that act, they are recommending that the provincial appointees will be paid $150 daily. The regulation doesn't go as far as defining daily, so that will be a board decision. However, the recommendation from the 3 clerks of the municipality will be that it's paid for each attendance at the meetings. And that remuneration will be divided between 3 municipalities.
Thank you. And Councillor, just to be clear, per meeting and not daily. I'm glad you brought that up because it is important that the public understand that. So thank you. All right, you've heard the question. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, on this? Sorry, Madam Clerk? You have a question or comment? Oh, sorry, I thought you were voting. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. You twigged this question in what you just said, and I don't have this knowledge. So if you are unable to attend, does Deputy Mayor Snell attend in your place? If if the appointee from council is unable to attend, would someone else attend in their place? Because I take it you would need provincial appointment to do such a thing. Could you clarify that for me, please?
So I'll look to the clerk for guidance on this, but my understanding is there will be 2 provincial appointees that will be governed by the province in their seat on the boards. But the board, once established, will only require a quorum in order to move forward with the meeting. So if a member isn't in attendance, as long as a quorum is there, then they would continue on. There wouldn't be someone to replace those members. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor White, Deputy Mayor Snell, all in favor?
Your Worship, so we will be doing a recorded vote.
Thank you.
We have the mover and seconder, so I'll call everybody alphabetically. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
Yay.
Councillor Timms.
Yay.
Councillor White.
Yay.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we'll come back to item number 2, that council appoint so-and-so and so-and-so as the council member representatives to serve the Huronia West OPP Detachment Board for the current term of council. Questions or comments on this? Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is where I want to make my motion. After a lot of conversation. I would like to motion that we appoint not only yourself, your worship, to the board, but as well Councillor DeLeo as well.
All right, thank you very much. We'll need someone to second that motion if no one else has any other questions or comments. All right, we'll need a seconder first to get this on the floor. Seconder for Councillor White's motion. Councillor DeLeo, all right. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor White's suggestion. I think with Councillor DeLeo's background in being part of the police and commission and whatnot, she's got extensive experience, and I think will be a great asset to that board.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor White?
Sorry, yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just clarify that Councillor DeLeo was a member of the Toronto Police Auxiliary.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, so we do have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll do the recorded vote. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
Yay.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
Yay.
Councillor Timms.
Yay.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And we'll now move on then to item number 7.5, resident parking passes online payment system 0240314-05. And we understand that this was pulled by Councillor Belanger and Councillor Timms and myself. Councillor Belanger?
Thank you, through your worship. I wasn't clear on the process of enforcement. Like if it's online, then is it that that our bylaw people would have to scan every plate to determine if they have a permit? If it's something they can just print off and put in their car, what would stop them from printing off numerous copies? I'm not sure how seamless it would be for us to enforce, non-compliance in our parking lots. So maybe we could turn that over to our bylaw officers.
Thank you, Councillor. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, and through your worship. So in regards to enforcement, it shouldn't be any changes rather than officers physically seeing a pass in the window. These passes would be obtained online. We are already going through the lots using Honk Mobile to type in users' license plates to see if they have paid for parking or if they had a non-resident pass. So now we will just be making that step for residents, typing in their license plate and ensuring that they have a resident pass, and it comes right up on our phone that we're already using. We did explore the scanning option as well to see if that would be easier, but we did reach out to multiple municipalities that either use it or have used it in the past, and unfortunately there was a lot of issues with it, so we are going to continue with our regular process. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Belanger, go ahead.
Just a follow-up, we have most of our parking issues occur at our busiest times, and the lots can be extremely full. My experience last summer is a parking officer could very easily see those cars that had a resident parking pass, and there would be no need to scan a plate or to type in a plate. If you had nothing visible and had to type in every plate in every parking lot, that seems extremely cumbersome to me.
Thank you, and through you, your worship. Certainly, I could understand from a third-person point of view that that might seem like we are taking a lot of extra time to do that, but truthfully, get me through a lot, and I'll show you how quick I am. Once you start typing it in, even for example, say a license plate starts with ABC, once you type in AB, it will maybe show a couple plates with that, and you'll be like, oh, resident pass, and it's very quick, so it's not necessarily typing in the whole plate or anything like that. There's also some benefits to it as well. We've had issues with residents forgetting their pass, having to come in and show us their pass so we can void the ticket and everything like that. This is something that can be very almost, mindless. You get your pass at the start of the season and you don't have to worry about it for the season. It's always going to be linked to your plate, and yeah.
Councillor Belanger?
Just one more follow-up. My understanding is the OPP have the ability to scan plates, that there's no typing involved. It's just aim, and it would immediately come up on the system. Again, I don't know Honk's capabilities or where they may be going in the future, but again, that seems far more effective than this typing. So
points are well taken, but I think what Rachel had mentioned is that other municipalities do have a scanning system, and it is cumbersome, and it does create more problems than it's worth. I think the OPP system is almost a photo radar type system where it takes a picture of those license plates for the police, sends that into their system, and then it gets it back. I think what's important to note here, folks, if you're in reading the report, that this will be tied quite closely to a backhouse system that is created by companies like Honk Mobile that is going to be able to tell us many different things. It may tell us whether or not that individual still lives here. So if someone has a parking pass but then moves away, we'll have the ability, if they've sold their house, for example, to know that they're no longer there and to be able to follow up on that and those types of things. So be rest assured that back-a-house, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, is quite robust and will be well utilized to help us through this system. I understand a lot of people would say, well, we got to type this in as opposed to it being in the window, but I mean, let's face it, if we're relying on what's in the window, to a point you made early on in your comments, anyone could duplicate those and put them in the window. The officer's got to now take the time to really go up to the window and look at that to make sure it's authentic, to make sure it's correct, it belongs to that vehicle, so on and so forth. I think the great news about this is that it's going to allow, I won't say this too often in my life, but in this case, technology might be a wonderful thing. No offense, Chris. But, it's going to allow people to get out there and get their pass without having to come into town hall. And we learned last year, this was, I believe, a great initiative by this council to allow our residents to park for free. I'm looking to our CFO. I mean, it was exhaustive on staff to have 14,000 parking passes, so a minimum of 7,000 people coming in to get those. It was very time-consuming. It was costly. This is now, every year you can go on, you can get your passes, you get 2 vehicles, and it is what it is. And we'll hear people now say, yeah, but I want to take mine and give it to, my friends, and sorry. We can't give everyone free parking. This is meant for what it is, and that's for our full-time residents. The other complaint that we will hear is, I'm the tenant of the house and the landowner won't give me the pass. That's an argument to be had between you and your landlord. It's not the municipality's issue and responsibility. So it's not perfect, but you show me a system that's perfect, and I'll show you a system that doesn't exist. Councillor White, you were next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question, Rachel, and I'm sorry, I should have probably prepped you for this, so if you answer with, I'll get back to you, it's completely fine. I love the fact that municipalities are starting to use these apps or whatever, like Toronto uses the Green P app, I think it's their own. Collingwood uses HubSpot Mobile, I think is theirs. One of the concerns I have with these, or dislikes I have with these apps, and I don't know if Honk does this or not because I don't use it, but do you have to fill a wallet in order to use the app for regular parking? I'm not talking about the parking pass because I understand that that's a separate thing because it's free, but with Toronto Parking and with especially the one that they use in Collingwood, you have to have a minimum payments of $20, which doesn't even register as a day's parking, but into the wallet, and therefore you could have a balance sitting there unused for quite some time. Does Honk do that as well?
That is actually something I love about Honk. So if you noticed last year, we started putting up signs in all of the parking lots that had the QR code to scan. So you don't even have to download the app. You don't have to have a wallet with a certain amount of money. You basically just scan that QR code or, go in online if you choose to do that as your payment and just do it that way. So it's kind of nice. It's very user-friendly in the sense that, at least for myself, I don't want a bunch of different parking apps on my phone or a wallet where I may never visit a municipality again, and you do not have to do that with Honk Mobile.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeLeo, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a comment and then a question. So my comment is, the nice thing about this is that people can't sell it. I remember last year, there was a lot of talk of, can I sell my pass? So, and I thought, well, that's not really right because it's for our residents. So I like that. The other concern, well, the concern I have is some seniors or people also, they don't have internet. So will Town Hall assist them in going on and you can help them out? Like, will they be assisted? Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your inquiry and through you, Your Worship. So we are going to do a variety of different methods. One of the main one that I wanted to actually speak to today, so thank you, is the information sessions that will soon be available. Keep in mind we are in the planning process, so we don't have those set up or anything yet, but we do want to make this as seamless as possible for residents. And that won't just include having tablets set up for people to do it at the stations. We're going to have staff available to walk them through it. We're hoping that it's just a matter of, bringing in proof of residency as well as your vehicle owner information, and then we can do the rest on our side. And then outside of those information sessions, we will also have, I already started putting a tablet down in the bylaw department. So if someone comes down during our regular business hours, we'll have staff there to help them. If other facilities, municipal facilities, are open to assisting us as well, that's going to be a conversation held in the future to see if people can go elsewhere too to get this set up. But yeah, we want to make this as seamless as possible. We understand not everyone necessarily has access to internet, or even if you're not comfortable necessarily with the process. Obviously, from certain point of views, I think when I'm looking at the form that we're setting up right now, it's very user-friendly and everything, but yeah, we want to help, and if there's any other ideas, we're happy to take those on as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing more to add because my colleagues asked my questions, so it's covered. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple comments. I was also going to highlight about the staff savings because I remember the report coming back in regards to the impact of that, giving out all of those paper copies. And although in the report it says basically it's going to be a wash between the cost of printing the hang tags versus the fees that are incurred with the app, the fact that we're saving all that paper and all those trees in the forest, I think is a great thing. So, and I was really also very happy to read in the report about the support for staff or for older residents or those that don't have access to the internet and being able to get that support. So I think it's a great system in moving more to automation in our processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor Ego.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just reiterating in a way here, I had sent Rachel an email, so I wanted to thank her on addressing for the seniors or people that don't use the apps. And you were good enough to answer me, but I'm happy for the public to hear it today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Anything to add, Rachel?
Thank you. I was going to add just one last statement to say, obviously this is our first year doing it, but we're going to continually evaluate the process. If there's issues that happen this year, we're going to keep improving and everything like that, but I've heard a lot of great things from Honk Mobile and other municipalities that use Honk Mobile, so I am very hopeful that this will be a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and it's great because we've had a several-year relationship now with Hawk Mobile, so they know our needs and our requirements, and we have a good relationship there. And but important to note that, you know, this is free parking for our residents, and it may take some effort on behalf of everybody, not just staff and council, but on our residents as well, to make sure we get this out and we get through this as seamlessly as we possibly can. And again, I think it's important to make the public aware that don't expect this to be 100% perfect. It won't be. But one thing we can assure you is that when we hear of or know of any issues or problems, that staff are going to work through that to make it the best we possibly can. So thank you again to staff for the report, and I think this moves us to the next thing on the agenda, and that is a mover and a seconder. The report titled Residence Parking Passes Outline Permit Systems to Council Meeting of the 14th of March 2024 be received for information, and that the continuation of free resident parking passes now be facilitated through online distribution rather than in-person issuance. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor Ego. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Snow.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor?
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And now moving on to item number 7.6, Town Hall Review, Request for Expression of Interest 20240-314-07. And I'll open the floor to our CAO for this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. With your indulgence, I thought I would give a bit of an explanation about some of the background behind this before jumping to the recommendation. So there's four things that I wanted to share with council and the community that may be listening. I briefly want to explain some planning principles, and I promise I will keep those very short because eyes can glaze over when you start talking about planning. Want to talk about the current state of this building, Town Hall. What I mean by that is the structure and some of the anticipated cost related to the structure. And I'm going to pull in General Manager Danny Rogers to assist with some of that discussion. I also want to provide a brief update on a temporary move to the library that is currently in process. And then fourth, I'll provide a bit of an explanation around the recommendation that's in this report. So here's the brief high-level planning comments. Thousands of years, centers of government have always been in the centers of communities. Usually that means downtowns. There are some strange outliers that exist around the world, but most communities have their center of government, their city hall, their town hall, their civic center, in the middle of their downtown in a highly visible location. The reason for that is quite simple. Town halls, civic centers are centers of community life, centers of government. We're here today because of that. They're a symbol of civic identity, a symbol of civic pride, and they generate activation. They generate life because people interact with these buildings. That's why they're so often in the middle of town. Some of the life they generate, people come to attend meetings. There's some in person here today, some are online. We are obviously all here today. Unfortunately, some people come to visit Rachel and pay parking tickets. Some will come to visit Jocelyn and pay taxes. I know people don't like doing those two activities, but oftentimes they're positive things to attend meetings, workshops, etc. Oftentimes, town halls, community centers can activate a place. You'll often find skating rinks, Christmas tree lightings, menorahs, festivals, etc., adjacent to your main civic building. And a really important point not to overlook is all the people that work in these buildings. We've got 160 odd employees within this municipality. Most of us eat lunch. Some of us go out before work, after work with their friends. If there's an evening meeting, oftentimes we'll grab a bite to eat. That's an important consideration when you're thinking about economic spin-offs. And just as there are many businesses that like to locate next to a high school so that they can capture that lunch crowd. A lot of businesses also try to capture the workforce crowd who will come out and eat lunch or have business meetings, et cetera. So important to be considering about those things. If you put your town hall in the right spot, you can capture positive economic spin-offs. If you put it in the wrong spot, you can lose those potential spin-offs. Typically, businesses within a 10-minute walk are the ones that really benefit from where key civic anchors are located. All of these issues, and I promise I stop now on the planning side, these were all spoken to in the master plan that we did back in 2017. That master plan did speak to the need for a new town hall at some point in the future. We did not put a date on it, and we don't have to do that today, but the recommendation was that at some point in the future, this community should probably revisit where a town hall should be built. And again, so that was very clearly laid out in the plan. Wasaga Beach, our town hall, is somewhat of a strange beast that does not necessarily leverage the full economic potential that it could. And part of the reason for that is this building that we're in today was never a purpose-built town hall. It's a repurposed school that was built in the early 1930s, and I believe Mayor Smith, I think you attended this school as a young child. So it was a school. It was designed as a school. It was never designed as offices. It was never designed for the function that is currently fulfilling. So some of those key planning principles that I just explained to you, they were never part of the equation when this building was being sited and designed. It's not visible. There are many that come to our community that don't even realize that Wasaga Beach has a town hall. Many of us, we almost on a daily basis will be out in the parking lot as we're walking in and out of the building, and we'll see cars pull up, and forlorn visitors will get out of their car, and they seem lost, and we'll go and speak with them, and they'll say, I've never been here before. I wanted to come visit Wasaga Beach. I typed it in my GPS and it brought me here. Where am I? I don't see a beach. I don't see a main street. I have no idea where I am. Can you help me? Of course. And we all have those experiences of going out and helping visitors. The beach is over there. The main street's over there. For workers, the town hall is also a little bit, it's just inconvenient enough that many will jump in their cars on lunch hour. And the economic spin-off is spread throughout town. Again, many would say, well, that's a good thing. But it can be so much more. Because it's just that much of an inconvenience, many will brown bag it, bring their own lunches in, et cetera. So surrounding businesses, particularly on Main Street, are not realizing the economic lift that a town hall typically generates. Having spent multiple decades working in Mississauga and Brampton, I can tell you, daily routine was, let's grab 10 friends and let's go across the street and grab some lunch. Or got a business meeting, let's go across to the coffee shop and meet there. Those cities understand the economic lift that can come with a properly located town hall. Now, the existing town hall, the building we are in today, is approximately 17,000 square feet. In 2022, I believe our treasurer undertook a couple reports. One was a facilities condition assessment report, and the second was an energy demand management plan. As a sidebar, I think it is fair to say that this is not an example of an overly efficient building. We actually had to do a little bit of digging, and we just got the answer this morning of how many furnaces are actually in this building. There are 7. Some of us thought there were 4, there were 5. There are actually 7 furnaces that power this building. So that is not an example of energy efficiency. For 2024, we have money in the approved budget to actually begin repairs on this building. Those are largely driven by the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, or as we commonly refer to, AODA compliance. Our elevator needs to be repaired, replaced. Our current bathrooms do not meet AODA compliance. Just to fix those two things are going to cost upwards of $500,000. The estimate is $517,000. Over the next 5 years, we anticipate approximately $620,000 being required for repairs and maintenance within this building. We also anticipate over $580,000 of energy upgrades required. Having worked in this building for a few years, I can tell you that virtually every employee in this building has a portable space heater and they have a fan because the HVAC system does not work well here. I can also tell you on a windy day, I can feel the wind blowing right through the windows in this building. That is a ballpark. I believe it's a conservative estimate of $1.7 million that needs to be spent in the next 5 years. In a moment, Danny is going to explain why we believe that could be extremely conservative. In addition, 7 furnaces, the heat, the hydro, it's expensive to run this building. In 2021, it was $186,000 a year. That jumped to $340,000 in 2022. Some of that spike was a result of insurance rates rising, but the bottom line is this is not an efficient building to run. So I'm going to turn it over to Danny, but I will mention one point in passing. I recognize I've put on a bit of weight over the last few years, and whenever I go to the second floor of Town Hall, I walk very carefully because there's a bounce in the floor. And I think Danny can explain why. It does concern me, not just that I've put on weight, but that the floor bounces so much. With that, Danny, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you could just briefly explain some of what you see when you look at Town Hall.
I thought it was designed for that, so when you're standing long periods of time, your feet didn't get sore. There's give there, some cushion. General Manager Danny.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm happy to see our CAO put these recommendations before you today because over the course of the last 5 years, I've lived this building, and I can say that there are a lot of issues. And before I delve into those, I think I'd just like to give you a little OBC 101, which is the Ontario Building Code treats buildings based on, when you're evaluating a building, you go to specific parts of the code. Our building at 17,000 square feet would be a Part 3 building. Anything in excess of 600 square meters is a Part 3 building, and that is where you would find all of the construction requirements for our building. Everything from the firefighting provisions, smoke control, the HVAC system, the plumbing system, combustibility or non-combustibility of the construction is all laid out in there. In that part, it also lays out different types of occupancies, and our building would be a combination of 2 different occupancies, Group D being the office portion of the building and Group A2 being this portion of the building where we all assemble. A couple of years back, actually in 2019, in assessing the conditions on the second floor, we decided to do some reconfiguring up there. The kitchen, at best, was a fire hazard. I'd never seen anything like it before. And you could tell the space just didn't function well. So as we dug in and started to sort of reconfigure that floor, I had the opportunity to get a look at the bones of this building. And I can tell you that I was somewhat horrified at what I saw, and so much so that there's a reason you have fobbed access at each end of that floor now. The public, we didn't want the public having unfettered access to the second floor. We wanted to be able to control egress in and out of there and the occupant load up there. Andrew's absolutely right. The floor's got a good bounce to it. That's because the floor joists are 2x6. And I can tell you, I've been involved in the Ontario Building Code since the first code in Ontario was adopted in 1976. And in no iteration of the code since 76 was a 2x6 floor joist ever contemplated. And some of this work, I understand that it's an old building and there's going to be components of this building that aren't just are not going to meet the code, but we're talking about components of the building that would have been built since the inception of the code in Ontario in 76. So I think there's lots of reasons to be concerned. And as we talk about doing the upgrades in terms of becoming AODA compliant and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in this building, it's going to require a lot of work and a lot of digging into this building. And when we do that, we simply can't overlook bringing the building up to current standards. There's a part of the code, Part 11 of the code, that does allow us, when working on an existing building, to grant some exemptions to current standards. But I can tell you that on a building such as this, and the expectation that we place on this building in terms of performance each and every day with people in and out, and the number of people that come to this office, a lot of those exemptions are not going to be available to us. So we are going to have to, we're going to be faced with bringing this building up to a much higher standard, and until we dig in on it, we're not going to know what that is. So that's why when Andrew is absolutely correct when he says it's going to be an escalating cost to try and bring this building into compliance with both AODA and meet the expectations of reduced greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Danny.
So bottom line here, and I learned this, I renovate houses on the side. When you open up that drywall, you own what's behind that drywall. That's the situation we're going to be in if we start tinkering with the bathrooms and the elevators, et cetera. We've been looking at temporary solutions to this. The new library opens up a possibility for us. We have a current vacant building across the road here. That building is approximately 5,000 square feet. One of council's priorities was to modernize town hall. That is not just about technology, it's also the way we work. This building currently is extremely siloed. Unless I pick up the phone and call Trevor, the director of planning, or I call Rachel, it's very difficult for that constant collaboration that normally occurs in a well-designed office space. When you're trying to change the trajectory of a town, of a municipality, that collaboration is incredibly important. So we felt it actually made sense to move a significant portion of us over to the library for a bunch of reasons. It's more of a wide open space, so we can get that kind of collaboration going on a daily basis. So for this summer, Office of the CAO Planning and Building will be moving over to that library space. And that's very deliberate, the groups that we've picked. The CAO is really championing a lot of the council priorities, and we need our planning and building department to be right there with us as really the forward facing arm of the municipality. That will mean that a large proportion of the second floor will essentially be vacated as soon as we make the move. That is also very deliberate. We are trying to avoid having to spend the $1.7 million that could be a bit of an open-ended spend that could balloon to something that we don't even know today. But we know at a minimum it's $1.7 million. So we think this is a smart move. It's not a permanent move, but it fulfills a stopgap issue. Another issue that it helps us resolve is Rachel and her team in bylaw. When you've been down to visit bylaw, there's some steps. For a lot of folks in our community, those steps are challenging. So we either need, as part of our elevator overhaul, to start blowing out walls and building ramps to provide access to bylaw, or a potential easier solution is if we move over to the library. Rachel may not like this, but Rachel's team could move up to the ground floor, assume the space that we're currently occupying. There's already a window there for the public, so that again would save a lot of capital dollars. The library is tight, but it is workable. We've already got a design for it, and we're confident that this could work well. The library is 30 years old as well. It also needs work. Over the next 5 years, it requires approximately $470,000 of repairs and maintenance. It requires energy upgrades of approximately $170,000, and its operating costs are much lower than town halls, about $40,000 a year, given it's a smaller space, but also it's 30 versus 90 years old. So you would expect that the building code improvements mean it's a little more energy efficient. So all of this background leads to the recommendation in this report. And I want to be clear, this is not going to happen overnight. Staff are not recommending to council that we start building a town hall tomorrow. Just as we started planning for the new arena and library in 2016, 2017, it takes a few years for a project like that to actually get in the ground and out of the ground. So what we're recommending is that we begin the process of thinking about solutions. We also, and I'm sure Jocelyn would echo this, we simply do not have the capital funding, neither have the capital funding nor the development charge reserve currently to fund a new town hall. So I think this requires looking at some alternative funding strategies. What's in the report is a recommendation to explore the willingness of Main Street landowners to partner with the town. We've been very deliberate at the area that we've recommended, the areas between the Main Street Bridge and River Road. So that section of Main Street, for all of the reasons that I mentioned earlier as part of some of the planning principles, your town hall should activate your Main Street. It should be highly visible on Main Street. In terms of some of the suggested program, we would recommend approximately 20 to 30,000 square feet would be a reasonable floor plate to explore. Some at home who are watching may think, is that even feasible? And it is. And the reason I say that is many of us are familiar with retail establishments. There's a term called a junior anchor. And a junior anchor is essentially between 15 and 30,000 square feet. And these are PetSmarts, H&M's, Shoppers Drug Mart, the larger Shoppers Drug Marts. Our library is in that range as well. But it is a building typology that many developers will build on spec and throw out a for-lease sign and look for a tenant. So essentially what we're looking for is someone that would be willing to do that. Our recommendation would be that it be a scenario where the town could enter into a lease or long-term lease and avoid all of the upfront capital costs. Some of the criteria, I believe it should have frontage on Main Street, should have the ability to have a civic square for skating and Christmas tree and menorahs, should have ample parking, and the potential for other partners who may come to the table. This could be other levels of government, could be the county, it could be some others who may be interested in potentially partnering up with the municipality to explore doing something significant in our community. What we would like to do, subject to council direction, is simply explore a business case, which would look at the following. Number one, is there anybody out there that would be interested in working with us? That's the first thing we would be looking for. Do they have a suitable land parcel that could accommodate the town's needs and any other partner that might come to the table? Do they have the ability and experience of designing and building facilities that the town could occupy? Would a return on investment of such a venture be favorable for a developer? And what would the potential lease payments for a municipality look like? And we would have to assess those versus the do-nothing scenario. So do-nothing is spending a minimum of $1.7 million with carrying costs of upwards of $300,000 a year. So is this favorable for the municipality? And importantly, what would the economic impact be? I think it's a very easy undertaking to analyze the economic impact of the current town hall versus a future town hall that could be located on Main Street. So what we're looking for is direction to begin the exploration, put out a request for expression of interest and see who might be willing to work with us, develop a business case and report back to council, and just simply explore, is this worthwhile exploring now, or do we ignore it, spend a lot of money, and leave it to a future generation of planners to resolve this? My recommendation would be to commence the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Any other staff, anything to add? All right, Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Man, that's a lot to unpack. Sit tight. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and a lot of people, especially almost everyone. Rachel is getting the funny eyeballs. Do you like the basement? No. Kind of got that feeling. You're right, there are a lot of people that work in this building, and to your point, I do see an awful lot of space heaters and fans in here, and I have been in your office, and it is quite chilly. And it's not a luxury. This is a workplace. It's not for council. We don't have offices here. This is not, planning the next evolution of Town Hall is not about a council. It's a workplace and a place for people to come and interact with the town. I'm really not a fan of the idea of engaging a Main Street owner to put in a long-term lease and have the Town Hall be an anchor of a development. I really feel that it's a value of a small town to have ownership of their town hall. Like you said, it's a keystone of the municipality. I would hate for that keystone to have an expiration date per se because of a lease. And I think that there are a lot of problems that can happen with leases. Corporations that hold these leases can change hands, they can fold, they can do all sorts of things. And I don't think that the contents and the town hall should ever be held to some sort of risk like that. There's a lot of things that are going to happen in the next little while that I would like to see maybe included in your report. I do strongly agree with you that this town hall needs to be planned. The replacement of this town hall does need to be planned. But we have the possibility of the OPP saying the same thing. We have the library that has the same thing. We have that chunk of land where the old Wasaga Stars Arena is, and next to that, there's a lot of land around. And I know that you want to anchor this on Main Street, and you look around like, Collingwood is a good example. It has a town hall on Main Street. I understand your desire for that, but I do feel that the value needs to be given to the taxpayer. I know that when the new arena and library was built, there was a study that looked at what town lands could host such a sizable project. I'd like to maybe revisit that and see what other town lands are in the portfolio that could do this. I guess a scenario that I would support is looking at it and saying, can we dispose of some land, perhaps this, or the old library, or the old arena, or something else that's in order to pay for the new town hall and have it have little to no impact on the taxpayer. You turn on the evening news and there's nothing great about, the state of people's wallets these days. And I think any extra tax burden, whether it's trying to figure out how many 2x6s are holding this place together, I don't know how they got in here in the first place, or even building a new place, I don't think that the taxpayer has any more room in their wallet for any of it. As much as it would be nice to replace this building, and moving that second floor over to the library is a brilliant move to mitigate some of that stress. But I think long-term, I'd like to see from my perspective and my chair, I'd like to see a town hall that's owned. I'd like to see it use existing land or a trade of existing land, like we sell one piece to buy another, and avoid a long-term lease. So hopefully you can take that into consideration when you're doing your report. Instead of narrowing it down to the Main Street land, I know that's a huge desire. However, maybe we do a trade.
Thank you, Councillor White. Other questions or comments? I do have Councillor DeLeo next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Okay, thank you, Andrew. I listened to what you and Danny said, and I totally get it. And it sounds great. Your plan sounds great. But while it would be fantastic to have a new building, and I'm only going to comment on the new building. Everything else, I agree with Councillor White. In my opinion, spending on consultants at this point, after all the expenses incurred and tax increases in the last few years, would be detrimental. I believe consultants were already hired for the downtown plan in the past, was it not? I'll get back to that. Our town has incurred debts from the beachfront property. The arena has just been completed and has added to the overall debt as well. I feel at this point in time, too much, too soon. I feel our tax dollars would be better spent on other priorities at this time. and I'm only commenting on a new build. But I have to echo everything Councillor White said. So it's just the new build. I can't get on board for that. It's, again, too much too soon. In the future, no problem, but if we're going to hire consultants, and the consultants are very expensive. We're not talking 10,000, 20. They're very expensive. But Andrew, can you answer my question? Weren't consultants hired to do the beachfront consulting? And wasn't that part of it?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, we're not recommending hiring any consultants here. This is simply staff would put out a request for expression of interest. The only cost is staff time to begin a conversation. There's no dollars being spent here. And it's simply to see if there's a willing partner. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, but I have one more question, if I may. And this is, if you don't mind, this is for Fire Chief Williams. You do inspections every year in this building, correct? And if so, are they not in compliance?
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo, and through the chair. Yes, we do conduct fire inspections of all the municipal buildings on a annual basis, and the purpose of those inspections is to look for compliance with the fire code. So I would describe this building as meeting minimum standards. It meets the day-to-day requirements of the fire code. We have emergency lighting, we have emergency exit doors. But in saying that, if you were to construct a new building today for this use, this building would look very different because we would be complying with the modern building code. And just as an example of that, this building would have fire sprinklers in place to protect municipal records, to protect the staff, to protect the equipment. So we're not well equipped to deal with a fire. And I can tell you, there was 2 fires in the town in the last week, and those owners of those buildings didn't expect them to happen. So we know it's always a possibility. From an emergency management standpoint as well, we do not have emergency backup for this building. We have a Generac that supplies a very, very small portion of our infrastructure, but if we end up experiencing a long-term power outage, our health and safety manager is going to be saying that our staff won't be able to work in the building for that prolonged power outage. And as well, under the building code, and our chief building officer could help us here, there is such thing as post-disaster building requirements. So these are typically government buildings that are intended to maintain continuity of government after a large disaster. This building certainly does not comply with those requirements. I believe the only building we have in town that does is Fire Station Number 1. So that's not to suggest that we should be building the building tomorrow. But as we kind of navigate this path, I think these are considerations we should be given, and that there is benefit to looking at sturdier buildings that will be there for us when we need it for many, many years to come.
Thank you. And like I said, Andrew, I agree with what you're saying, you're reporting with the renovations. But like I said, the only thing is a brand new build on Main Street at this point, I can't get on board with that. But if we can move like to the library, I believe the old library, I thought bylaw was going to go in there. No? Was it not discussed at one point where bylaw would go in there?
In an ideal world, but there just isn't enough room.
Is bylaw alone, there's not enough room?
No, so the team that's going over there, there's not enough room to also bring bylaw. Sorry, Rachel.
I think what we heard and what we've seen is that bylaw is not a big enough department to come close to filling that building. And with the plan that has been made, the CAO's office in building and planning fills that building to its capacity. So there's no more room then for bylaw. I can tell you, I don't recall this council ever discussing bylaw or anyone moving at this point to the library, so I don't know where that's from. But all right, anything else, Councillor DeLeo? No. All right, thank you. We'll now go to Councillor Belanger.
Thank you. Through your worship, first of all, I want to clarify, reiterate what the CAO said. This is relatively a long-term project where we're starting the process. So I don't want anyone to think that we're looking at an expenditure in the very short term. That's not happening. The other thing I want to point out is that I personally have a pretty good track record over my 8 years on council to have a good eye out for the taxpayer. Certainly related to the new Twin Pad Arena and Library, without provincial or federal funding, I aggressively was concerned about that, and I will continue to be very concerned about the taxpayers' dollars. And I think there's a lot of financial sense in what's being discussed, and as we delve deeper, we'll get a better understanding of whether this is a benefit to the taxpayer and not a cost. And with that said, I want to talk about a couple of things that might have been implied but weren't mentioned, in that as a resident of Wasaga Beach, I am frustrated that we are the only town that I know of that does not have a main street. We have a main street in name, but the main street that one would expect doesn't exist. And we're entitled to that. We drive huge economic benefit out of our town every week because residents cannot get the products and services that they expect in their own town. And when they're out, by the way, they have a lunch or a dinner or do shopping that could have happened within their local town, but because we forced them to other municipalities, that happened. So having a town hall, if that were a catalyst to get the start of a downtown, and there would be other tenants in that building, of course, and if that was a catalyst to have a town square, and if that was the first domino that got the development communities really serious about investing in Wasaga Beach with multi-use purpose buildings across our main street, that would be unbelievable for our residents. I recall the very first meetings that we held that talked about our review of the most economically viable downtowns in North America that were a 10-minute walk from one end to the other and generated about 27% of a municipality's revenue and about 2.5% of the land mass. This can happen. This can be financially very beneficial to the Wasaga Beach taxpayer, and they need to know that we're going to look at this and be very concerned. The other thing is we've known for a long time that we're 800 to 1,000 units behind demand for single-level elevator access residential. We have many individuals over the age of 78 that are living in 2,000 square foot bungalows, not because they want to, but because there's very little offered for them to downsize effectively. So think of this, where the town hall exists today in the library, that's very desirable land. It would be in walkable distance to a evolving downtown, and it would allow very productive residents to stay in their community. I think that when you put all this together, when you look at the real potential economic impact of starting the ball rolling, and again, I just will reiterate, I am not looking to have what occurred in the past where we had 2 years of significantly high tax rates because of a major infrastructure without federal or provincial funding. I'm not in support of that, but I think there's a possibility to do this right that will benefit all of our residents in a very positive way for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Next is Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I have to say that I'm really in support of putting Town Hall on Main Street. And coming from the BIA world, which is basically Ontario's downtowns, I know exactly the impact that daytime intensification has, and the towns without workplaces in the Main Street just seem to have vacancy after vacancy after vacancy. So I think that's a really important point. Councillor Belanger, really covered everything so nicely, but I think it's something that to put it in dollars and cents, that will build up our commercial tax base as well by attracting more people. I didn't hear my former mayor in Mississauga, Hazel McCallion, ever admit to many mistakes. But at her final speech at the Board of Trade, the State of the Union of Mississauga, she admitted that the location of their city hall was a huge mistake, and it should have been in Port Credit. It took years and years to build up anything in that plot of farmland around. So I'm a big a proponent of a town hall on Main Street. And if you look at Collingwood, I mean, they got it right. They have a government building, they have town hall, they have all kinds of things, and it's feeding those businesses. And with good economic development strategy and a BIA, they have created almost a perfect scenario of what a strong, successful downtown should look like. So I support the request for an expression of interest because I think it's a unique, well, it's not unique, but it's a great concept to see if there is anyone interested in such a proposal. I do want to ask a question that was tweaked for me by Councillor DeLeo. Are we hiring a consultant in any form to do this, RFEOI?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. So we have the skills in-house to do this, so no consultants are required. This is the beginning of the process. If it has legs and if council wants to proceed down the line, I mean, you would have to get someone involved designing a building, but we're not there. This is just a cursory business case that I'm very confident we can do in-house.
As a follow-up, I do want to say this, once this agenda went live, the public was so, around me at least, asking me so many questions and showing so much interest, and that's why I was relieved to see that you were speaking to it today, and I actually wanted it pulled so that we could elaborate on it, so they would understand the direction that the staff is thinking. I just think it's really important that people understand that it's something that we need to do long-term planning because we don't want to have an emergency situation. So it is part of our priorities. Thank you.
If I could just comment on one comment that I think 3 members of council have now touched on. Assuming that council wanted to proceed and do a business case, it's very important where you put a town hall. And I could probably spend an hour describing those communities that made a mistake. Collingwood got it right, and they're seeing the benefit of that. Mississauga got it wrong. I don't like to disparage other places. Vaughan's got it wrong. They're building a metropolitan center, and they went with the expedient land that they already owned, and they built their brand new $30 million town hall in the middle of nowhere, because it was cheap land. And a lot of these places regret these decisions. So there are case studies out there. Kitchener got it right. North York actually got it right. So we know how this can play out, good and bad. We don't have to experiment and replicate mistakes of the past. So I would strongly urge location, location, location. If we want to do this, it's really important that it be on Main Street. We don't have the money to pay for this today. I acknowledge that. I'm not here telling you we do. So the idea is to start a process and look creatively. Is there another way to finance a town hall? If there isn't, we'll come back and tell you. We can't afford to do this. So that's all we're asking is let's take a look at it.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving on now to Councillor Ego.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation, and I see it as a long-range plan, and I'd go over everything you've said, really, and about the founding fathers of this town named a Main Street for a reason. And it's time we did turn it into a Main Street, and I do believe it's the town hall, hands down. It just came to me, I was around when Brampton was arguing that their city hall should have been in Bramalea because the land was cheaper and it was booming out there. And the town fought and moved it to those old 4 corners in Brampton They've made the square, they've made that skating rink that people from all over the world come to skate down at that Gage Park weddings. So it is important. I have absolutely no doubt. Councillor Belanger spoke to it so passionately. And absolutely, it's the start of a Main Street into the future, and the name's there, and it's time it looks like one. I think that's basically what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ego, and now Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just a couple of comments and a question. To your point about the folks who come here and then they don't realize that they're here at this building, that actually happened to you and I, if you recall, a year ago in the early spring, and we were out there just finishing up a check presentation or something like that, and literally they came out of their car not knowing what building they were entering, and we were able to help guide them and send them down to Nancy Island and whatnot. So true to your point in regards to that. The other thing I want to mention as well in regards to sort of in your reference of the report, the terms of council priorities, I'd also like to add the environmental impact of looking at this in a long-term solution, not only from the, the building efficiencies and whatnot, but also to the walkability of being on Main Street and these 150-plus staff being able to walk to get their lunches rather than starting up their cars and driving to potentially get their lunches. So I think it also hits that term of priority as well. The other thing I wanted to reference as well is, just recently in county council, there was a long-term project that had been started. Jerry, you would probably know better than I in terms of that starting date of the organics processing facility. That was 13, 15 years in the making of planning for that massive facility that would manage the organic waste. And it came to the point in the process that staff were now looking at putting out an RFP to construct the facility. And they kind of went, well, you know what? Conditions have changed in the last 13 years. So let's take a pause for a second and let's relook and get a new quote. Let's look at it. Well, what that resulted in was a $220 million save to the taxpayers. So I think when we look at municipal infrastructure like this, and a lot of our neighbors are unfortunately didn't do the foreplanning, and they're now paying the consequences, and the taxpayers are paying the consequences. Look at our neighbors in Tiny. Their facility was built in 1967. It's newer than ours, and yet still, because of population growth and staffing growth, they've outgrown their building, and I see us as being in that same projectile. But I think we need to look at creative solutions, and to Councillor White's point, I agree. Obviously we want to make sure that risk is mitigated as much as possible, and I think through proper due diligence and good legal counsel, we can have, a very long-term lease that has strong restrictions in regards to rental increases on an annual basis and whatnot. But to everyone's point, the taxpayer cannot afford to build this new building. Not necessarily now, and perhaps not 5 years from now. So we have other buildings that we need to replace the debt, and that require our dollars and our attention. So I applaud staff for looking at creative ways to solve this. And I think your suggestion in regards to moving the staff around to alleviate the pressures upstairs and to utilize the former library without a ton of investment is smart. But pausing before investing the $2.3 million in these upgrades, that's financial responsibility. So I really applaud this option of going out and doing the RFP. The question I have, though, is how does this impact, if we pause right now and we potentially take 6 or 8 months to go through this process and bring back a business case and then look at it and whatnot, how does that affect the AODA requirements, given that they were due at the end of last year, calendar year? Do we get a grace period if we're in a process?
Andrew?
So I may pull in a couple colleagues to help me respond to that. So first of all, the move to the library, vacating the second floor, and essentially there would be no need for any member of the public to go to the second floor of Town Hall, should mitigate some of those issues. One impact, however, though, and Jocelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was some grant dollars for the elevator that we may be in jeopardy of losing if we don't proceed with the elevator project. I don't know if you want to touch on that one.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, there is a grant that if we didn't do the elevator this year and replace it, then we will not get those grant funds. And I believe the grant monies were in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $150,000.
So, but that said, the overall price tag is, upwards of $500,000. Could we push off? I think we could absolutely push off the need to renovate the second floor bathroom if nobody's up there using the floor. The first floor, I would look to Danny. We're in a gray area where the province, I think, could force compliance. So I'm not quite sure. We can try and get away with spending the dollars, but someone could force our hand. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, through your worship. I would say, I think we could certainly write a justification as to why we would be pausing on moving forward with some of the work that's related to AODA, and I think we can make a good business case. And we do with fire safety actually, where if a fire system in a building isn't functioning properly, you can balance that off with a human element. I would say we could do the same thing with AODA compliance in that, as long as we have measures in place to make sure that we're able to assist people that have a particular disability, that we would have a defendable position should the province come knocking on our door.
Is that it, Deputy Mayor? All right, thank you. We'll now go back to Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's one thing I want to say that I wish I didn't have to say, but I will say that working with this council, I've been very excited about our decisions really moving this community forward in a financially viable way. I feel like that, and I'm very proud of that. But I will tell you that even since this agenda went out, there is scuttle on social media of those individuals that would fearmonger and indicate that this council is being financially irresponsible to even suggest a new town hall, where clearly we're looking potentially 3, 5, or more years down the road, as per to the CAO, which any business would have effective long-term planning. So I just want to reassure the public that I believe myself and this council has your best interests at heart. And if I had $1 for every resident that said, I just hope you start moving this town towards its potential before my life ends, I would be a millionaire. Most of our residents want us to move this community forward on the beachfront, on the main street, with a high school, with a medical center, and we're getting it done. And I am very proud, and I will be an advocate of doing it in a very financially responsible manner. So I just, again, want them to be very clear that we're not talking about going out and spend a ton of money tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, I do have a few. So again, I want to commend staff for forward thinking and planning. I think that the general public, generally speaking, wants and expects their council, their government, to be thinking and planning for the future. And that's what this is. It's simply thinking about and planning for. To Councillor Belanger's point, the official opposition party, if you will, in Wasaga Beach, will be screaming and yelling from the rooftops that we are out there spending taxpayers' money willy-nilly. And what they'll say is that the last 2 years we've had these high tax increases, but what they won't say is that those high tax increases are based on a previous decision of a previous council that we are now having to ensure is funded and paid for. I think it'll be very different as we move forward. And I know that that will be challenging for staff to make sure that we are at a level of taxation that is reasonable and responsible. We've looked after the issue, if you will, and want to be clear, happy we have that issue. It is a beautiful building, one of which we all, and last council, and councils before that should be exceptionally proud of. And we've proved that it can be a great facility for a lot of fun things and activities other than just hockey, figure skating, and reading books. I go in that building now, I go into the library, and I've said this before, many people said to me, why the heck do you need a library anymore? Well, go into that library. And to Pam and her staff, it's alive, you know, and they're busy activating that, and things are happening there. And the arenas, the ice rinks are busy, and people are enjoying the spaces within that building, the meeting rooms, so on and so forth. It's a great building, but it has to be paid for. And so we were tasked with making sure that happens. To Councillor White's point, this is not about building this Taj Mahal, as you may hear, for this council. Town halls are not for council members. They're for the general public and the people which continue to keep the wheels on this bus moving every day. And I'm happy and proud to say that you people who do that in this community are second to none. And so thank you for your forward thinking. I understand where Councillor White is coming from here, that I would much prefer to own our land and building as opposed to lease or rent it. But I can tell you of a great community called Collingwood, you might all have heard of that before, for many years leased their town hall before they purchased their town hall. And they're not alone. So it's a place to start. Is this going to happen tomorrow? No, it isn't. This is going to take years of planning, and then finding the taxation or the dollars outside of taxation that will help to make it happen. And what I'm really happy and proud of, as Councillor Belanger said, is this council and our team here, who is always thinking about other options, thinking outside the box. How do we do A to make B happen, so as that the winner in the end is our taxpayer? But what I'll tell you for certain that I've heard for many years now in this community is that we need to move forward. We have been standing still for far too long, and often that year is 2007. It's like we stopped in time. Well, here we are. We have a beautiful new facility in our arena and our library. We have great partners at the table where we are going to make good things happen on our beachfront. And it has been in the plans for many years to create a proper Main Street and a place for people to gather and to shop and to enjoy their community, their friends, and their life. And again, I have said this many times, and I'll say it again, you show me any community that doesn't have a Main Street proper, that is vibrant and alive, and I'll show you a sleepy, quiet little town that has little to offer its community. And so this is absolutely a good asset from the municipality standpoint, if we're going to move forward, to make sure that we have it on our Main Street. Collingwood does get it right, and they get it right on a lot of things. But if you look at taxes in Collingwood on a property compared to taxes here, the proof is in the pudding that it all has to be paid for. And we cannot simply throw the brakes on, pull back on the reins, and stop our horses and our carts and say we're not going to plan or do anything because it isn't affordable. We have a responsibility to find other ways so as that it can be affordable. And I'm confident that we will get there. And I'm confident that we will create a community that is going to be, again, second to none in future. And it won't be just this council that does that. I'm hopeful that it will be the next council, and the council after that will continue. There's two things we all hate or dislike: change and the way things are. So we need to make a choice. And I choose change. If we stand still, we die. It's that simple. We do have lands, our own lands on Main Street. And I'm sure that staff will consider those lands versus other lands and other partners when we look at this pricing. The very corner of Glenwood Drive and Main Street is a large parcel or parcels of land that we own, that we could very well utilize. Is it the most suitable? We don't know. We don't know a lot of things. And that's why staff is here today saying, give us the authority to go out and look and explore and understand and come back to you. We also have the ability to use assets that this municipality owns in other lands, and we own a lot of land. And you will hear people say, yeah, they're going to get rid of all our land and we'll never have any parks or anything again. 25% of our land mass is provincial park. That isn't changing. And this municipality has great parks, and this council just finished and we built another park on River Road East, which is beautiful. So we have a lot of great assets. We have ways to work through this. And I, again, will commend staff. And I think what you're hearing here is we don't know the answer, but we look forward to hearing and seeing what you come back with in future. If there's no other questions or comments, I will read the question. The Town Hall Review request for expression of interest 2024-031407. The recommended motion that the report titled Town Hall Review Request for Expression of Interest to the Council meeting of March 14, 2024 be received, and that a request of expression for interest RF EOI be issued to Main Street landowners seeking an interested proponents to work with the municipality to undertake a business case that explores the potential options available to the municipality to build a new town hall on Main Street, and that staff put on hold any planned capital expenditures for the existing town hall building pending the outcome of the RF EOI and business case, and that staff report back to council with a summary of interested proponents, a high-level business case that explores the various options available to the town, and recommendations for consideration by council. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? Sorry, it is a recorded vote. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Eagle. In favor. Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor?
Councillor White.
Yay.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion passes unanimously, Your Worship.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And moving on to 8.1.3, this is the February 21st, 2024 Municipality of St. Charles request for support fully funded municipal equipment operator courses. And I understand that Councillor Eagle pulled this. Councillor Eagle?
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Yes, I've just asked that we support this to the province to fully fund a province-wide course that properly trains the potential public work employees, specifically retaining to municipal heavy equipment. So I'd like to support this.
Thank you. Councillor, any other questions or comments on this before I read the question? Seeing none, the recommended motion is that the resolution dated February 21st, 2024 for the municipality of St. Charles requesting the province of Ontario's Ministry of Labour, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades to fully fund the municipal equipment operator course in 2024 through the Skills Development Fund be received, and now therefore be it resolved that the town of Wasaga Beach supports the municipality of St. Charles in their request to the province of Ontario Ministry of Labour, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades to fully fund the municipal equipment operator course in 2024 through the Skilled Developments Fund, and further that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Labour, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades, David Piccini, our local member of Provincial Parliament, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, and the Association of Ontario Roads Supervisors, AORS. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor Eagle. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Councillor DeLeo,
In favor.
Councillor Ego,
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell,
In favor?
Councillor Timms. In favor. Councillor White,
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now moving on to item number 11, council requested staff reports. You've all seen the attached list. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Item number 12, notices of motions. We have none. And item number 13 is the closed session. It is recommended that pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the March 14th, 2024 council meeting will move into closed session to consider the following matter: beachfront property matter in accordance with Section 239-2A, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and Section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters therefore administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? Motion carries unanimous, and we'll now move into closed session.
Through your worship, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. And just come out of closed session to discuss an item, and I'll ask the clerk for a rise and report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council entered closed session on March 14, 2024 at 12:05 p.m. to discuss a beachfront property matter pursuant to Section 239(2)A and E of the Municipal Act. As a result of that discussion, there's nothing further to report on the matter at this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now moving on in the agenda to item number 14, bylaws. 14.1 is a bylaw 2023-21 be received and to be deemed and read a first, second, and third time, passed and finally passed this 14th day of March 2024. Any questions or comments? Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Timms and Councillor White, all in favor. That motion carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.